Hello, everybody. And we are just getting started with self care. And I'm very excited to share with you some new and amazing ways to not manage anger, but actually eliminate anger. Okay. So, um, so I want to just share with you. I just want to make sure our Instagram is live. It is. So I want to share with you about Dr. Mort Orman, who I actually met in 2015 or 2016. It was at the Corporate Health and Wellness Conference, and it was in Orlando, Florida. And we stayed in touch at least long enough to do this. So I'm kind of excited about this. Let me tell you a little bit about him. We're having some technical issues. So I'm just navigating technology just for the quick moment. So here we go. So Dr. Mort Orman, MD, is an internal medicine physician and a 40-year anger elimination and stress elimination expert. And when I met him, we were really talking about stress, and stress is just as damaging, quite frankly, as anger. He has written 23 books on how to eliminate anger and stress without using drugs, relaxation exercises, or other traditional management techniques. He is the creator of the 10-session Angry No More Anger Elimination Program, the Anger Internal Causes Framework, and the Ultimate Anger Elimination System. He has led more than 100 anger and stress elimination workshops for doctors, nurses, lawyers, business owners, entrepreneurs, and other professionals, including the clergy and the FBI. He's also been the official sponsor of the National Stress Awareness Month in the U.S. every year since April of 1992. His newest book is Dr. Orman's Life-Changing Anger Cure, Eliminate Unwanted Anger Without Anger Management so you can be happier, healthier, and don't end up alone. And honestly, that's a real thing. Because if you're really, really angry, no one really wants to be around you. Just going to say. Okay. So with that being said, let me bring on Dr. Mort Orman. And welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Jody. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so excited to have you here. And, I want to, I know you submitted some questions, but we talked a little bit yesterday, and I'd really love, for you to share why you did this. I mean, I know I've struggled with stress and anger all my life and finally figured out how I got rid of it. But, and we talked a little bit, but explain to people the why you chose to serve the world, quite frankly, in this regard.
Well, it started off with me, like I say, having a lot of anger and stress, anxiety, relationship failures, stuff like that. That for me started around college and got worse during my medical training and internship and residency and my first 3 years of practice. So it was something that was very troubling to me because I just felt it was one area of life where I felt like a failure, where I couldn't control my emotions. I couldn't stop reacting emotionally in ways that I wasn't happy about. And no matter what I tried, nothing worked. And then I'm taking care of patients. And, as doctors, we can tell very quickly the angry people from the not so angry people. And you see what happens over time. A lot of people don't get that perspective. But I had that perspective, so I could see that the angry people had a lot more, health problems related to anger, heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure. They would get addicted more often. They would have more divorces, business failures, stuff like that. So I'm seeing this train wreck related to anger, and I'm sitting there with my own anger, and and I said I don't want to end up like that. So I got to. That kept me pushing to try and figure out a solution. And eventually I started doing personal development work. Did that for a couple of years. Got fortunate to hit on a couple of good programs that I got involved with, and I put things together from a number of different sources, and eventually came up with something that, wow, shocked the hell out of me. But it actually enabled me to control my anger for the first time in my life. And once I was able to successfully do that, And I practiced it for a while. I said, hey, this is really important for people's health. And as a doctor, I got to get this out into the world because I don't see many people. See a lot of people telling folks how to manage their anger, but I don't see many people telling them how to cure their anger, how to stop getting angry. Which
Right.
what I
I'm with
discovered how to
you.
do.
I
Yeah.
mean, you and I work in the same space in that regard. I don't teach people how to manage their anger either. I just get rid of it. But
Yeah.
we're here to talk about yours. So I
Yeah.
want to hear, like, you know, let me go to your questions. I mean, I lost my note pages. It's not coming up. Technology sometimes is not your friend. Okay, so how does your approach to eliminating anger differ from anger management?
Yeah. Well, to me, anger management is what you do once the anger is already built up
Mm-hmm.
most of the time. And it's okay, what can you do with it? And you can release it sometimes, get it out of your body, whatever tension's building up in your body. You can punch a punching bag, you can run 5 miles, you can do relaxation, deep breathing, all that kind of stuff. Or you can yell and scream and punch, which is not good anger management. But so you can.
It's sending the wrong energy, is it not? I mean,
Yeah.
Anybody who understands energy, you really don't want to do that. You want to handle your issue.
So there's all kinds of problems. I mean, how people express their anger and deal with their anger once they've generated it can cause all kinds of other problems too. Or if you suppress your anger, and then it can build up inside and cause health problems and stuff like that. So,
I don't think that people understand that. Like, I don't think that a lot of people understand. I mean, according to traditional Chinese medicine, anger is stored in your liver, right? Mm-hmm. And so, if they self-medicate, you're gonna have those, whatever drug or alcohol or food, however you choose to self-medicate, whoever's listening, will drive your outcome based upon, your genetics and your epigenetics.
Yeah, so, and that's how some people end up addicted, because they get very emotionally upset and they don't have a good way to deal with it. So that's what they turn to. And those alcohol and drugs work in the short run to make you feel a little bit better, to numb whatever discomfort you're having. But it's not, as we know, it's not a great strategy. It has all kinds of downstream problems. Yeah. So I don't have any problem with anger management. I don't promote it, but I like to teach people how to understand where their anger is coming from within them, so that they can get their hands on the controls and they can turn it on or off whenever they want to.
Right. Be in the driver's seat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And unfortunately, most of us, our experience is that the anger drives us around. The anger's in the driving seat, and this shifts you in the driver's seat, where you can turn. If you don't want to be angry, you can turn your anger off, or where it's coming from, so you can deal with it, understand it well, and have strategies based around that new understanding. So that's what I try to do. I try to give people a new understanding of anger, as to where it comes from, inside of their brains and inside of their bodies.
So where do you say anger comes from?
To me, it comes from certain ways in which we look at the world. And if we look at the world or think about the world in certain ways, we can get ourselves angry. Okay. So one of my principles is that we never see the world as it actually happens. Right. There's just too much. That's because there's just too much data coming into our brains. Our brains can't process it all. So our brains, from back in prehistoric time, their job is to simplify things and cut some of that stuff down and chunk it down into manageable bits that we can deal with and make decisions. Do I run or do I stay? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? So our brains kind of simplify stuff, and they chunk it down. They filter it, whatever the whole mass of information that's coming in. They filter what the brain thinks is important versus not important. And that may be different for different people. Your brain may decide, or you may have trained your brain or conditioned your brain to consider certain things important and certain things not important. But anyhow, that's what your brain's going to do. It's not going to give you the full picture of what's happening around you. It's going to give you a condensed picture, and it's going to be leaving stuff out. And sometimes that stuff's important. What it leaves out can be very important for understanding the whole nature of what's going on. So there's filters, and we have hundreds and hundreds of different filters that we've developed through our lifetimes, and some of which we get from our culture. So
Mhm.
our culture kind of defines what's good and bad and right and wrong and stuff like that, or our religion or whatever. So we have these groups and these cultural filters, how we look at the world, and then we have our own idiosyncratic ones. So if you got bit by a dog when you were 3, you may have a filter now. All dogs are dangerous. And
Right.
and if you didn't have that experience, you might not have that same filter. So
Right. And the thing is that, we make up these stories,
yeah,
right? We make up these stories that are not really based on reality whatsoever. Because actually, when I was about 3, um, ironically, I was playing tushy wushy with my dog, my German Shepherd,
uh-huh.
right? And he turned around and he didn't bite me, but he bit my sister in the nose. And so, are all German Shepherds bad? No, but when you're pushing on their tushy, right, as a 3-year-old, they're going to have their own set of responses that
Yes.
elicit a reaction, and possibly a bad one, which was pretty bad for my sister. She
Yeah.
needed
Yeah.
stitches, but
Yeah. So that's how filters get established in our brains and our nervous system. As we go through life, we have different experiences, and sometimes if they're powerful enough or alarming enough, they get kind of stick in there, and then we kind of see the world through those filters. So we get a little bit of distortion here and there, and that kind of stuff. So anger really comes from 3 main ways of looking at things,
Okay.
which I didn't understand when I was in my 20s and 30s and had lots of anger as a young man, a young doctor, and I couldn't control it. Uh, the main reason was I didn't understand these internal causes, how I was generating, and my brain and body was generating the anger. And I didn't
Right.
realize that there were 3 main filters, and they're very simple. When I tell them to you, they'll make sense. And actually, people, when they listen to hear this, they should write these down because this
Let's
is going
do
to be
it.
very powerful. Yeah. So the first filter is the way you look at things is that you see somebody doing something that you consider bad or wrong and they shouldn't have done.
Mhm.
So there's usually some negative judgment about what's happening,
Right.
and because we don't get notice we don't get angry if we think somebody's doing something wonderful or terrific or fantastic. It's only when we have a negative judgment about what they're doing or what something's doing. If we get angry, let's say you get angry at your computer one day, like technology, so it's not working, and you start to get angry. Why? Well, it's doing something wrong. It shouldn't be doing this. It should be working. Okay. And then the second filter is where there's some kind of negative impact, some kind of negative consequence
Mhm.
from the bad and wrong behavior. So if you're trying to get work done on your computer and your computer goes on the fritz and you get angry, it's because you judged it to be doing something it shouldn't be doing. And
Mhm.
now you're impacted because now you can't get your work done, or you might lose the work that you had, or something like that. So that's the second filter.
Lose work, right? Then you're like, wow.
Yeah, yeah. That's a negative impact. There are all kinds of negative impacts that you can have. Some can be
Right.
minor, and some can be major. And then the third one is a filter of blame. So whenever we're angry, we're in a mode of blame, but it's very particular kind of blame. I call it unilateral blame because it's very narrowly focused. It's like we have these big horse blinders on, and we only focus on what the person we see doing something bad and wrong. We only see them and their behavior as being involved. We don't see any other causes, even though there might be other causes. We're
Yeah,
very
I
we're
get
very
that. That's
focused on
huge.
them. Yeah,
That's huge. Because and first of all, I'm in complete agreement, right? It's about the judgment. It's
yeah,
about getting upset about what the consequence of that judgment is, and then blame and shame.
yeah.
And but the unique thing that I just heard from you is the blame and shame is unilateral, meaning that people are not looking outside the current reality about all the environmental impacts or history or anything that could have possibly contributed, which
Right,
means we don't have compassion, grace, or consciousness.
correct. So
Mhm.
we're not looking. So we're just looking at their bad behavior,
Right.
and we're blaming everything on their bad behavior, and we're not looking at where their bad behavior may have come from, and we're not even looking at, like in a relationship, for example, when we get angry at our partner or a kid or a parent or whatever. When you're in a relationship with someone that you've been in a relationship for a while, and you see a bad behavior on their part that upsets you, makes you angry, you're tending to focus on them as being the only cause of the bad behavior. Their behavior, obviously, they're causing their behavior. They're choosing to do it, okay, or or automatically, reflexively doing it. But you're not seeing any other causes. So you may have played a role in why they're behaving the way they are, but you're not. That's not in the frame. You're not seeing that when you're angry.
Right. Well, so they're not seeing, a lot of us are not seeing how we trigger somebody else,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Especially if there is a twin flame relationship, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but that's an older soul who gives birth to another, their soul splits, right? And so
Okay.
these two people come into relationship, and the whole relationship really is about mirroring so you can grow. So they're constantly triggering each other, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Well,
so
we do that. We do that anyway in relationships. We all trigger each other in relationships. Yeah.
exactly how, and until I think that we learn that triggers, especially in relationships, especially with your husband or wife, are an opportunity for growth and healing, right?
And one of the ways we can grow, again, when we can use anger as a jumping off place to grow, because the anger is going to tell you you've got an automatic conditioned knee jerk way of looking at things, which is to blame your partner, to see your partner is doing something wrong, and to automatically blame them exclusively. Okay. And to pretend that you didn't have anything to do with it. Okay.
Right. Which is funny.
Yeah.
Now, I've only been married like 2.5 years, and I already know you all have something to do with it.
You always have something. You might have done something to cause it. You might have allowed it to continue, where you didn't step in and stop it. You may be subtly encouraging it, or whatever. There's both by actions you take and actions you don't take. You could be contributing in some way. Now, it may be, it's the point is it's never 100% zero.
Mm-hmm.
It could be 90-10, it could be 80-20, 70-30, it could be any combination, but it's rarely 100-0. Okay.
Well, and let me just kind of like zero in on something you said. You go, it could be the actions you take or the actions you don't take, right?
Yeah.
And so I always talk to people, it's not just your actions, it's your inactions, it's the trends, these behaviors that you have that are repeating and they're not changing,
Yes.
right? So
or the behaviors your partner has. Your partner may have certain behaviors, and you're just letting it continue. You're not addressing it. You're not you're not helping them to understand that it's problematic in the relationship and it's going to cause damage if they don't do something about it. You're not helping them figure out how to do something about it. You're just kind of like putting up with it and getting pissed, but not saying anything, and that keeps it going.
Well, and it's enabling. Right. It's
enabling. Yeah, absolutely.
Enabling behavior, and it's passive aggressive. Right.
Yeah.
And these enabling behaviors and passive aggressive behaviors don't get us anywhere. And so I think
get us divorced.
Get us divorced. Absolutely get us divorced.
So it's not that they don't get us. It's not that they don't get us anywhere. They get us a place we don't
get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
Right. We assume, I'm making an assumption that you'd like to stay married. That's why you got married to begin with.
Yeah.
And then I would say that, and I feel this way, and you can agree, you can disagree with me on this. Okay. But I feel that this is very prevalent for men. That they're taught, and of course they're raised by women, right? That they're not allowed to feel their feelings, right? Or speak their feelings or what have you. And so we have a large population of men, and I won't say all men, but where they haven't been heard and they've been quashed, and then eventually they just pop, and it's not fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can disagree, by the way.
No, I think there's definitely, the culture gives different messages to men and women about anger and other emotions. That's, actually for women, it's like that for women. For the culture says it's not okay for women to express anger. It's okay for men to express anger. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't get
that. Doesn't mean, there's a larger, you're talking about there's a larger message to men. Don't feel anything. Don't have any emotions. Right. Okay. But if a man gets angry and expresses that anger, punches a wall, punches a punching bag, yells and screams, in our society, people go like, oh, well, that's okay. That's a healthy expression of anger. If a woman gets angry in the same manner, the same intensity, our society says that's a really bad look for a woman. Women
well, and they also say, well, it's just PMS. Right.
or they'll do that, or they'll do that.
I'm like, I don't have those body
They'll,
parts.
they'll, you know,
I
they'll
still do it.
completely, dismiss it. Like,
Yeah, right.
yeah. But so there's all kinds of different ways we react to these emotions. But the main point is we don't understand where the hell they're coming from. And
Right.
that's the big, if we understood, we see all this anger that we see in the world today, all these, protests and people destroying things and fighting with each other and punching each other and killing each other. We can't start to diminish that until people understand why they're feeling that, where their anger is coming from. And that's, for me, that's a big deficit in our education system. We don't teach people how to understand that well.
Yeah, that and where the food comes from. But yeah,
that too.
From a grocery store. No, it doesn't. So where does anger come from?
So again, it comes from filtering. It comes from your brain filters.
Yep.
And there's three main filters, which I just gave you. Somebody did something bad and wrong. Somebody was hurt or harmed or negatively impacted, and the person who did the wrong thing is 100% responsible or to blame, or mostly responsible or to blame. When you see the world through those three lenses, and you believe that that's true,
yeah,
you get the emotion of anger.
Yeah, and so you have simplified it beautifully. I like to do a deeper dive because you did touch on it, which is it's about the belief systems, right?
Well, they get baked into the filters.
Yes.
Causes you to see the world through your beliefs,
right?
And your stories and your conditioning and all your past experiences. All that stuff is how you perceive the world. You're not seeing it accurately as it's happening. You're seeing it through whatever filters are built already inside your brain that get triggered inside you. So people think that anger is one of my big gripes is our common sense view of anger, and what everybody reinforces is completely wrong. But we walk around with this model of it's like a one causes two. It's like somebody says something bad to you, somebody criticizes you, lies to you, cheats on you, steals from you, does something bad and wrong. All right, we see that and we feel the anger, and it looks like one causes two, direct cause effect. And that's our common sense model, and that's what everybody's being conditioned to believe, that the external factors directly cause you to experience anger. They're missing the fact that there are internal causes that you can't see that have to be there in order for the anger to occur. And that's these filters, these three filters. You have to look at that event, that person's behavior, through these three filters in order to get the emotion of anger. And if you don't know that, you don't know anger. You don't understand anger or emotions in general, because they all get created that way. So anxiety gets created just like anger, it just has different filters, different set of perceptions that make you anxious. But there's still a small number of filters that you're looking through, and you believe it's true when you're feeling anxious. And a lot of times it's not true. We know that with anxiety. A lot of times things we're afraid of never happen.
So yeah, and I would, I'd agree with that. And we have some people on here, so I want to let them know there's actually a book out here. So this is Dr. Orman's book, Life-Changing Anger Cure. And yes, Vieta, this is great emotional intelligence training.
Yeah, when you understand anger really well, like I explained in the book and like we're talking about now, when you really understand anger and in your bones, okay, I now know where my anger is coming from that I didn't know before. You have a window into all your other emotions because they all happen in a similar manner. They have slightly different internal causes, but they're all being generated by internal filters that may or may not be true. But when your brain tells you they're true and then gets really demonstrative, your brain really sells it to you hard, and if you buy it, then you're going to get the emotion. The trick is to not necessarily buy it because your brain is selling it to you, because our brains are playing tricks on us all day long.
Subconscious mind is running your show.
Yeah.
So unless you get your brain in a theta state and calm down and like for me, I've learned to access consciousness, and I used a precision sound frequency for 10 years, and so I trained my brain to be in a theta state and in an alpha state simultaneously, so I can listen to you and hear God at the same time, right?
Okay.
And so we can access content. Now, most of us are not going to do that. I'm just now.
No, but the point is you don't have to go with your brain's default mechanisms or their conditioned, responses. You can decide that you're going to do something different or create a different relationship to that stuff when it gets triggered inside you, or keep it from getting triggered inside of you by practicing some patterns or habits, like you said, of training it to stay in certain states so you don't get that. And meditation kind of does that a little bit, retrains your brain a little bit to be more in the moment. And,
Yeah,
and
I use this little ditty. It's a precision sound. It's neuroplasticity, but in a box.
Yeah, because our society trains us to be in the present, be in the future, and be in the past all the time,
Right.
and hardly ever in the present. So you've got to sort of buck that trend that your brain has and that society has, and if you want to be in the present moment, you got to work at that.
So tell us, please, how you would help someone buck that trend.
Yeah. So first thing I do, again, I have this 10-session program that I based the book on. I share what I teach in that 10-session program in the book. And I start off by teaching people these filters. All right. Mm-hmm. And then I have them, actually, the first thing I do is I say, before I teach them anything, I say, just pick 5 examples from your life where you ever got angry about anything. Okay. Anything. And I have no idea what they might choose. Okay.
Right.
So they write down 5 things. And then I do the Johnny Carson question thing, where you have the envelope up on your forehead.
I remember, Johnny.
Yeah, and you have the answer. You already have the answer before they ask the question.
Right.
So then I go through and I teach them these 3 filters. And then I say, okay, now let's look at your 5 examples that you selected. Okay. And every single one of them will fit that pattern. They were thinking that somebody did something bad or wrong, that somebody was hurt and harmed, and that person was unilaterally responsible for blame. And every single time, 5 out of 5, we could do 100 out of 100. Now, usually we only have time to do 5 in an hour session. They will see that every time they get angry, these filters are in the background causing mischief, causing their emotion. Okay. So then the second session, I show them some of the behaviors that go along with that, which is really not that the behaviors kind of prolong or intensify the emotion. Okay, but that's a different story. But I show them the filters, and then for the rest of the time, the rest of the 8 sessions, it's just taking examples from their life where they've ever gotten angry. We now have a framework, which I call the anger internal causes framework, these 3 filters. So now we know why you got angry, because you were looking and believing these 3 things. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now let's dive in. Remember the old circle back, Jen Psaki, circle back?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's circle back now. And
I still use that phrase.
and see how true these are. Are they really true? Your mind, your brain told you they're true. And at some level, if you got angry, you bought into that they are true. But are they really true? Let's really look at them. Mm-hmm. And then I help them do that. I help them pierce through the apparent truthfulness and to find holes and gaps and things that are missing and things that the filters left out. And then they get a broader view of what's really happened in that incident, whatever it was in their life. Could have been a past incident, could be something happened last week or yesterday or this morning or whatever happened. I want them to see that their automatic knee-jerk reaction and the brain's telling them these 3 filters are true often isn't true. Usually one or more of these filters is going to be faulty in some way. And we don't know in the beginning exactly which ones and how what's the real truth underneath the false truth. But if you dig around a little bit and you get some coaching, you get some help in doing that, you can start to see pretty quickly that that's the case.
So are you asking them to, let's say, it's a man and a wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wife. Are you getting, and we'll put it on the husband just for the sake of it. Are you getting him to go back to his wife and ask clarifying questions so that they can better understand?
Well, sometimes that will, in other words, that will help. If you're stuck with some filters that may or may not be true, you can either try and figure out on your own without the help of anybody,
right,
where they might be faulty. But in a relationship, a great strategy is, well, let me share these filters with my partner, tell them how I'm looking at things and get their input as to whether I'm missing anything or not. and they'll tell you what you're missing. They'll be very clear what your filters are leaving out or what they're missing. And they'll be able to fill it in right away for you. And you'll go like, and as soon as they do that, you'll go, oh, you're right. I didn't see it that way. Just to give me let me give you an example.
Yes, please.
In the house we used to live in before I moved to Florida, we have a 2-car garage. And one of the things I told my wife early on is that I really don't like it when I come home from a busy day at work, because I would work I'd leave like 6 a.m, come home like 6, 7 at night. If I come home, I don't want stuff lying in my parking space where I have to get out of my car and move it on. So the request was, please don't leave anything. If you're working in the garage, gardening, doing whatever you're doing, do not leave anything in my space when I come home. And she said, I agree. I promise I'll do that. Okay. So I came home one day and there's some stuff in there that she left. She forgot to remove. So
don't block the egress.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah. Okay. So my 3 filters kicked right in. She did something bad and wrong. I'm negatively impacted. She's to blame. Okay. So I go in and I start, I start grousing on her. I said, I told you not to do that, and you did it. And, it's like, it's like you're never thinking about me. You just do your thing, and you never, consider it. And she said, and she stopped me and she said, you have no idea how many times I've moved stuff and you weren't here to see it. And you're not giving me credit for that. And she
I've had that conversation.
And she was right. And as soon as she said it, I realized it was a blind spot, because I'm not there. When she's doing stuff in the day and she's putting stuff in that space temporarily and then moves it out very conscientiously, I'm not there to see it. It doesn't register for me. But as soon as she said it, I said, oh, that's a blind spot I have, and she's right. And I apologize. I said, you're right. Everybody screws up once in a while. It's no big deal. But
actually everyone does. And I just call them hiccups. I call them lessons.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's, as I mentioned earlier, my book is launching in the fall. And the last chapter is called Words Are Just Vibrations in the Air. And so then I have different contributing authors that explain about the energy on words, right? And they pick a word and we discuss it. Yes. And, the energy on the word mistake can put someone into blame and shame.
Yes. Uh-huh.
But if we shift it to lesson, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, I just got a lesson. Cool.
Yeah.
You learn the lesson, you move on. There's no blame and shame, no negative energy.
And no anger.
And no anger, right? So it's about shifting our mindset about how we look at things and how are we going to choose different languaging, because a lot of people are triggered by certain words, and
absolutely.
Because as a community we've given it energy.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And a lot of times that triggering is really inconsequential, except that we built it up to be a big thing. So we have a story that this is a really big sin if you do this, if you say this word, and that gets down to that frame of hurt and harm being done. Was hurt and harm really done? And if so, was it how much? Did you lose an arm? Did you lose a leg? Were you in a hospital? Did you lose any of your faculty? No. Somebody said something and bothered you for 30 seconds. It's not a big deal. The truth is, if you look in the big scope of things, it was inconsequential, but you made it into a huge, thing and got yourself all upset. The truth is, it wasn't all that big a deal in the first place. Okay. And you could have restored yourself to that truth if you wanted to. Now, most people don't want to. They like to keep their pet peeves or whatever it is that they, hold people responsible for. But the point is, you really could, if you wanted to, let go of a lot of that stuff and not be perturbed by it, even if people make those kinds of mistakes, quote mistakes.
Well, I have to agree with you on all of that. First of all, I think most people make up stories. If I'm not communicating to my friend about why I'm not showing up or why I have to change a plan, and I'm not being transparent about it, that person could make up a story.
Oh, they will make up a story.
Right. That's rooted in a self-limiting belief to give evidence that their self-limiting belief is true, and it's not really true to begin with.
Yeah.
The other person just had an issue, has nothing to do with them.
Yeah. I use that. That's a common example I give. I say every single person has already had in their life an experience of being angry and having that anger immediately eliminated in a flash without having to do anything, in terms of anger management or anything like that. And the story I used is, you made an arrangement for somebody to meet you at a particular time and place. You told them it was very important. It was critically important that they be there on time. They said, they promised up and down, I'll be there. I got you. I understand. And then you're there well ahead of time, and it's time for them to be, and they don't show up. And you start, after about 5 minutes, you start getting a little upset, and then another 5 minutes, and you're concocting these stories about, oh, I should never have trusted them. They didn't, you're totally irresponsible. They really let me down, and you're getting all these negative stories going. And then they come in a few minutes later and they're all apologetic, and they tell you they left a half an hour early. They were totally conscientious about the thing. And they got caught in a traffic jam. They couldn't escape. They couldn't get out. And as soon as you get that information, which you didn't have before, okay, you're not angry anymore, because it busts those negative stories. The myths that they were irresponsible, they didn't take it seriously. They did, and you see that they did, and they're really apologetic. They really feel bad about it. And it just busts up that whole thing that you imagined. Because they give you the information that you didn't have of what actually happened. So there was a big blind spot that you had because you weren't there. You didn't see what happened. So, but the important point is, we've all had the experience. As soon as you get that kind of information and you realize the situation was different than you thought it was, your anger is gone instantaneously. You didn't have to do anything. You just change the stories that you believed were true. Or somebody changed it for you. They gave you the information. Well, we can do that on our own. Your brain can send you, and we know what the stories are because I just told you what they are. That's what your brain's sending you. Okay. And you can debate that. You can try to poke holes in that. Like you're an attorney, or, you're somebody trying to argue the other side, or see if you can see things on the other side. And you can frequently, on your own, without help from anybody else, realize, oh, I kind of jumped to a conclusion here. Maybe I should give that person the benefit of the doubt. I assumed they had a really bad motive for what they did. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't have a bad motive. Maybe all these things we make up in our heads, believe are true. If you really start to ask yourself, is it really true? You'll find out it's not. So my wife and I just celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. So you have
Congratulations.
You have some catching up to do.
But we're going to live to 120, so don't worry about
it. And fortunately, I figured this whole anger game out, before I met her, which was good, because all my relationships prior to that failed, and partly due to the anger problem that I didn't understand. But once I understood it, and I finally figured out how to get rid of most of it. So, and she never had a lot of anger in her life growing up. So consequently, in our whole relationship, we haven't had a lot of anger. We don't have a lot of arguments. We don't have a lot of fights. But in the beginning of our relationship, I noticed there was this one situation where we would start to get angry with each other. And it was so unusual for us that it stuck out like a sore thumb. If you're fighting all the time, one fight from another, you don't notice. But if you have a baseline of 0 and a fight pops up, it like really is noticeable. So after 2 or 3 times, and I noticed the same situation is when it occurred. And it was only in this situation. And it would only happen when we drove somewhere on a car trip to somewhere. It's like weird, it's the only time it happened. And
who was initiating the anger, you or her?
Well, I'll tell you in a second.
Okay.
I'll tell you how it went. But a real other thing I saw was it wouldn't happen on our driving to our destination. We wouldn't argue and fight when we were at our destination, only on the drive home. And usually I would be driving. My wife would be in the passenger seat, and we'd be driving home. And at a certain point, she would say, "Oh, there's something over here that I've always wanted to go see, and it's only an hour off our path. Let's go over there and see that." And I would go, "No, we're not doing that," with a tone, kind of a critical, "No, we're not doing that." And she would respond, like, "What do you mean we're not doing that? What's with the tone?" and we would sort of get at each other. And so I saw that this was a problem. Okay. And I said, okay, let me look at my filters. All right. Am I judging her to be bad and been doing something bad and wrong she shouldn't be doing? Absolutely. When you drive home from a trip, you drive directly home. You should not deviate from your path. So to me, she was doing
You had okay. I got it. You got a belief system.
yeah, yeah. That was not
Okay.
as a belief, but my family, that's how we did it. That's our family tradition. We didn't deviate, driving home. Her family was the opposite. They took side trips all over the place. So that was her norm, okay, for her family. So when she suggested that, okay, and my immediate response was not only no, but no, that's wrong. And we're not doing that because that's wrong. So I judged her immediately to be doing something wrong, okay? And so the filter told me that's if I'm angry, and I was angry because I had that tone and everything. And then I asked myself the $64 million question. Is it true that she's doing something bad or wrong? And I tell you, as soon as I asked that question, within like 2 nanoseconds, I realized that what the answer was. The answer was, well, not really. I mean, technically, she's not wrong. She just has a different way of doing it than my way. And I'm judging that to be wrong, but it's really not wrong. It's just we have two different
Right.
preferences.
And what you're talking about is grace. Like it's what I refer to as grace. That first of all, we don't all have to do things the same,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we can give grace to people, which you really shouldn't have to give grace, but
Yeah.
give grace to people for wanting to do something different than you. And we, let's say, if we're the ones who are having the judgment and the anger, we can say, well, maybe there's an opportunity for me to learn, right?
Yeah. And so from
to
that
do
moment
things
on, once I saw the truth was there's nothing wrong with her wanting to go off the beaten path, off the direct path home, if that's something that's of interest to her. As soon as I saw that was true, and that was many, many moons ago, okay, over 30 some years ago. From ever since then, whenever that comes up again, and she wants to go someplace off that, I say, sure, honey, if you want to go over there, let's go do it. Because I'm no longer seeing it as a bad and wrong thing that she's doing. I'm connected to what's true now, not what my filter was telling me or my brain was tricking me to believe. I say, okay, yeah, I know that's not true, that it's wrong. It's fine. And unless we have some urgent need to get home at a certain time, I'm more than happy to go wherever she wants to go. It's part of my job as a husband is to, help her have whatever she wants, and she helps me have what I want, and that's part of our deal, So, but the point is, I see the reality differently because I went through that process of challenging my brain, asking if the filter is true, and discovering very quickly, no, it's complete BS. But that's what my brain.
Well, and you're teaching people to not be linear. You're teaching people to think outside the box.
Outside the box their brain is sending them. Well, one of the things I say is that our own brains produce more fake news every day than all the media outlets combined. But we don't believe it. We think our brains are telling us what's true and perceiving what's true.
And then we get righteous about it.
Absolutely. And you know what? You know what's interesting?
What's that?
It's really funny. The emotion of anger. So if what I'm saying is true, which I say it is, our anger is being generated from filters that frequently are wrong. Okay, in one way or another. At least one of the three is going to be wrong. Some of them may be correct, but they're not. Usually, all three of them are not going to be totally correct. So it's wrongness that's generating our anger, but we don't see the wrongness. We think we're right.
Well, it's righteousness.
Which is why we get the anger, because we believe that we're not wrong. We believe that we're right. But then when we generate the emotion of anger, the emotion of anger feeds back into that and says, you're definitely right now because you have this strong emotion of anger. And that's telling you you're onto the truth. Anger solidifies the rightness of your position because you feel justified. You feel,
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So it actually puts a double whammy on you because it keeps you from discovering that wrongness is underneath your anger, because the anger now makes you feel right.
Yeah, and I want to also dive a little deeper. One of the things you mentioned is about hurt and harm, and there were two things. One, I have two responses. One is that hurt and harm, we can give that to God, to the divine, and let them carry that pain for us. The other choice is to wear it as a badge of honor, so we can be more righteous, right?
True.
What works?
But if we use that to continue to be angry and resentful, that whatever happened to us, then that's how chronic anger and chronic resentment
Right.
gets created. Yeah, yeah, because we hold on to that
Right.
hurt.
And
It really was a significant hurt and harm. And sometimes people, sometimes people do lose limbs or do lose parts of their body or do lose faculties, or somebody gets killed. School shooting, you lose a kid for no reason,
right.
no
And
good reason at all.
right. And I love what you're teaching people. I love that you have a book out there for this. And we've shared this book in the thread. So if you're listening to this, uh, even after the show airs, you can go to Amazon and find Dr. Orman's book. And I'm just going to share that with you again. And I want to make sure that for those people who don't have video, because this will be on every podcast channel, it's Dr. Orman's Life Changing Anger Cure. It's on Amazon.
You
So
can also
this
go.
is,
You can also go to endangerbook.com. It'll go to the same place.
awesome.
Endangerbook.com.
And where else would you like them to go?
I've got a free report about anger and about my 10-session coaching program and about the book, and how the book, you really can get a lot of the information that I teach in the program without having to go through it by just getting the book. But the best anger elimination method you can find, and you can get to this by going to theangersolution.org, theangersolution.org, and you can download this PDF file. It's short. It gives you some good information, and also get you on my email list, so you can communicate with me if you want to, if you have questions or whatever,
or want to do a session, right? Or 10.
Yeah, or want to have some coaching, we can do that. Yeah. So, yeah. So, but I'm really interested in getting this. I'm really interested in getting this into schools, getting this book into schools, into homeschools, into middle school, high school, college, because I think we're doing a terrible job of really giving people true emotional intelligence that they need to be happy and healthy. And as a doctor, I see a lot of the negative health impacts of not being able to control your emotions or understand your emotions. But in general, it just detracts from our happiness in life, which is important, and our relationships, and leads to countless divorces, which don't need to happen. If people had a better understanding of their emotions, I think the whole world would be a better place. So I'm really angry.
You 150%. So in schools, I say, I'm not saying you don't have to have algebra, but teach them how to balance a checkbook, teach them how to have a relationship,
and how not to destroy a relationship.
Show them where the food is really coming from and how to grow a carrot. Those kinds of things. These are basic life skills. It is a life skill to be able to get along with somebody in your home, right?
And it's not that easy. Well, there's some skill involved.
But I want to say, actually, it's much, because I don't want people to have fear around it. Buy the, meet with Dr. Mort Orman. It's not as hard as you would imagine. It's actually easier once you have a path.
Yeah.
And, so get the path and recreate and co-create with the universe the best version of yourself. Right.
Yeah.
I think it's important to not try to do this on your own. Yes, we should this in schools. No, we did not. Don't be angry about it. Buy the book. Right. I just think it's so important. And then going back to the belief systems, right? So this a little metaphysical for you. My crowd loves it. But the belief systems, yes, we know that a lot of the belief systems come from mom and dad or the media, any programming, but belief systems also come from past lives, and they're handed down as a cellular memory. Okay. And so it's in the cells. well, there's energetic memory, and then there's cellular memory. And so you could have a memory from like a great grandma, um, because of, well, there's more into that than I want to go into right now. But basically, you could be carrying around a belief system from an ancestor, right? It's not yours. So the thing is you can choose differently and show
Absolutely.
up differently, and you have choices in the matter. And having joy in your life is critically important, right? And it will save you a boatload of money, because those doctor bills that come from stress and anger
Yes.
are high. Do you not? I mean,
The car accidents, the holes in the walls, things like that.
well,
The legal bills, yeah, they all.
well, let's look at what it does to the cells also. So,
Yeah.
if you're familiar with Dr. Masaru Emoto, he's passed. He's a Japanese scientist, and he studied the impact of our emotions on water. And when you freeze the water after prayer, it freezes in the most beautiful, it's a beautiful snowflake. It's crystallized. It's gorgeous. Alternatively, if you freeze the water after anger, or just negative low vibrations, then it freezes and it looks somewhat demonic, and it's not very pretty. And our brains are 70% water, our body is 70% water. And so if you start to understand that your anger is actually going to change your DNA, it's going to change your cell structure. And so it's really important, not just to have joy because you'll just have a better life, but you'll stay out of the hospital. So, I mean,
I think there's lots of different forces that determine what filters we and how our brains get programmed and conditioned. And they can go back. They can go back to prehistoric time. How DNA has been shaped based on how our brains evolved and everything. So it's no, and there's so many other things that contribute, and they all go into the soup, and to make us how we are today. Okay.
Yeah,
Plus every experience we've had in our lives since we were born, it all goes into the soup, and it all gets baked into our nervous system and our brains and everything. And so whatever it is, I mean, there could be tons of different factors that contribute to it, but whatever it is, the point is you now have that brain, you have that body, you have that structure, and it's going to get triggered in certain ways, and it's going to manifest in certain ways, and you're not stuck with whatever that is as a result of your conditioning. You have the ability to choose.
Yeah, and it's your responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's your responsibility as the individual to handle it.
Yeah.
I mean, you came here to Earth School. It's your responsibility. You decided that you wanted to come here, so it's your responsibility to handle the issues. A lot of times people go, well, I didn't sign up for this, and this isn't, I didn't, whatever. Okay, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Okay, but the point is that you have the thing, whatever it is, and it's now your responsibility, no one else's, to handle it. And so people have to can choose to be accountable and responsible for what's in their life, the energy that they bring, and manifesting their best, the best version of themselves.
Absolutely.
So if anybody wants to get the book, I'm just going to show this one more time, and share this show if you're listening, because we like it when you share the show. So,
and again, the important thing to emphasize: this book is about anger, and it will really help people that have any kind of anger problem, whether it's big anger or just little daily annoyances, irritations, things like that. But at another level, it's really not just about anger. It's about human beings, what makes us human, and how emotions get created by us and by our brains in ways that most people have not been taught to understand correctly. And if you understand anger really well, like this book will teach you how to do, then you will have a better understanding of all your other emotions. Because if you have anxiety, it gets created just the way anger gets created. It's just different filters. If you have guilt, or if you have jealousy, or if you have some other emotion, they're all created the same way. Is their internal filters and ways of looking at life that produce the emotions, and it's just a matter of figuring out what those different filters are for each of the emotions, if they're problems for you in your life. Like I used to have a tremendous fear of public speaking.
You
You know,
did?
I did. I would have never done this when I was in my 20s and 30s. I would have been petrified. But I figured out what the internal causes were that was generating that fear.
Okay, I'm going to ask, what were they?
Oh, there was a bunch of them. But originally, I thought public speaking was just inherently scary. And in fact, we're told that. We're told it's like one of the scariest, next to death. It's like the scariest thing. Like, it's scary to speak in public. And it turns out that's not true. It is not scary at all, unless you approach it in a certain way. If you approach it in ways you can make it scary if you want to, and which is what I did. Which is what I did when I was younger. I made it very scary. And
Well,
then I realized
grad
I
school.
was doing that. I realized I was doing that, and I stopped it. I said, "Wait a second. These
When I was
thoughts
in
I'm
grad
having,
school,
are not true."
when I was in grad school, I was afraid to speak, and I was afraid to present, so much so that my professor allowed me to give my first presentation just one-on-one with her. And I believe a lot of this stuff are imprints. People have these, they what I call an imprint that they put on you, that then becomes this belief system. Oh, it's, speaking in public is scary. Well, probably somebody called on something and they got scared because they didn't necessarily have the answer. But we don't actually have to have the answer to everything.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Well,
it's
for me,
okay.
for me, it was an experience I had in the first grade, where we had this assembly that we prepared for weeks, and the whole class, my first grade class, we all had a paragraph in a story. We had to memorize our paragraph and recite it, and all the parents came, and all the teachers and kids were there, and then we were lined up on the stage, like the Rockettes, and one by one there was a microphone in the center of the stage, and we would on a stand, and we would the principal would come get us and take us up, and we would recite our paragraph. We had memorized. We knew that our paragraphs backwards and forwards. I knew mine backwards and forwards, but I'd only practiced it in class with my classmates. I'd never been in the room. So I got up there on stage, and I looked out, and I didn't realize there were the whole back wall was mirrored. It looked like there was 10,000 people in the room.
Oh my gosh.
And which caught me completely by surprise. And I just went blank. I could get the first word or two out, and then I went blank. I just kept repeating the first word, second word. I couldn't remember any of the stuff that I completely memorized. And I was really traumatized by that event. And from that point on, it was like I had a real experience that speaking in public is scary, because I was really humiliated. My parents were there, and friends, and all that kind of stuff. And so I tried to avoid public speaking like the plague from that moment on. And of course, that makes it worse when you don't do it, because then you never learn how to figure out what's really going on. But that's what happened until I finally broke through the whole thing and realized there was a bunch of silly stories that I had made up about that incident, about what it takes to be a good public speaker and what it's all about. And I finally identified them and realized that what the real truth was underneath those things. And then I was able to get out on stage, and from that new perspective of what's true, and I saw that it really wasn't that difficult. It wasn't that difficult. It wasn't that scary, and that I had an aptitude for it, which I never knew, because I wouldn't do it.
You were too busy being scared, and from sort of, your case wasn't an imprint; it was an experience, right?
Yeah.
And but really kudos to you for helping the world to address their stress, their anger, and to look at the world and the people that are in their world through a different lens.
Absolutely.
Right? That's really sick. You're like, hey, I got this new pair of glasses. Put these on, and you can see things differently, right?
Absolutely.
So,
and you're not limited to just one new pair. You can have many. You can have several different pairs of new glasses.
Exactly. And the other Vieta Robinson says, great lessons. She says, thank you both. Vieta is also in Florida, by the way. She has a podcast on Fridays and Sundays. So maybe you should join.
Sure.
So grateful that you came here and shared your wisdom. And I trust that people are going to check out the book. And go to endangerbook.com, or they can all.
That'll take them to the Amazon page. That'll take them to the Amazon page.
Mm-hmm. And then this is the angersolution.org, which is the workbook or the download.
Download. It's really not a workbook. It's a download. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So great tools that y'all can use. And then I would encourage you to connect directly with Dr. Mort Orman, MD, after the show, and release your anger. It doesn't serve you. So, all right. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
We usually have a video thing, but YouTube was getting wonky with every musical thing I played. So we're just going to say goodbye. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I got to run to another meeting, but thank you.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Yes. Thanks. Bye.